Hello, everybody. So this video is entitled Stocks Run. Nasdaq, of course, up about 3% as I record this. Is there more to go? What is going on? Of course, we are running because of the positive Middle East development, Middle East situation, Hormuz reopening. That's why we're running. But some stocks likely have much more room to go. And I think that's the case for most of the stocks that I have on this channel and that I cover on this channel. I'm bullish. I'm a bullish YouTuber. I don't cover stocks that I'm not super bullish on. So this is just a sample of 5 different stocks that I think have a lot more room to run. The first one of these, which right now almost broke $30. It was up 11-ish% earlier at one point, still 10.5%. That stock is HIMS. Of course, HIMS is still halved. It is still 50% off compared to where it was a year ago. But a year ago, this was a much smaller company, much tinier footprint, mostly the US, no eucalyptus acquisition, and they didn't have the partnerships. They didn't have the partnerships with Novo. They didn't have the quote-unquote not a partnership with Lilly, but, HIMS didn't call it a partnership, but they're still earning $150 of prescription fee on Lilly. So to me, it's just a play on words. To me, it's just the same as a partnership. Why is the stock going up? Why is the stock going up for HIMS today? Lots of bullish news for HIMS today. Actually, analysts coming out with bigger estimates, especially as it relates to GLP and the GLP-1 market. We also have a oral pill, the oral Wegovy pill, launching in the UK, with some polls showing that people much prefer the oral Wegovy, whether it is in the UK or in the US. That oral GLP-1 really seems to be making an impact. And so the market is noticing that. And of course, we try to attach a big up day like this on news related to the business. But perhaps the better reason why it's popping like this is because last Friday it dropped nonsensically. Last Friday's drop made absolutely no sense when the markets were fine last Friday. I mean, they were okay. But the stock dropped. HIMS dropped, made absolutely no sense. In fact, it just recouped whatever it lost on Friday, plus the indices being big up today. So the 3% extra of the indices. That's roughly another explanation you could come up with the stock. I think this stock is going much, much, much higher. It is a SaaS business that is not even trading even close to the currently very depressed valuation of SaaS businesses. HIMS is not even close to that. Of course, why do I call it a SaaS business? Because it's a subscription business. It's got very similar economics, but a much stickier product, and a product that is AI resistant because it's a physical product. So anyways, moving on. Bitcoin. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is another asset that I find very much oversold. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong trending today, talking about Bitcoin's bottom is roughly here. A lot of people buying Bitcoin at these levels. Turns out 59K was the bottom. We're now bouncing back. Maybe that's the second time we bounce off that kind of like 60K mark. Are we gonna test it once again? I would not be surprised with this type of asset. I mean, there's nothing you can with this type of asset. It's one of the hardest assets to own. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get back to 60 at one point, perhaps before the midterm, perhaps on new scares. I hear of tariff news potentially coming back because of Max 7 taxes for some countries. So I don't know. Tariff could make a comeback. We still have Cuba. We still have a lot of news going on that could lead the markets to drop again. But nonetheless, this is not the case for Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin right now is bouncing. We are halfway through the fear territory, heading back to normal perhaps soon. Same for extreme fear. It was 18 yesterday. It's now 20. I covered strategy this morning. Of course, strategy making a small buying a small $100 million worth of Bitcoin this morning. That's not much for strategy. Strategy still popping, and strategy, by the way, has a long room to go in my view. In my view, the stock could get back to 180 in no time. At least that's why, as you know on this channel, I'm extremely bullish on strategy, perhaps to a fault, right? Perhaps a lot of my followers don't like that I'm so bullish on strategy because a lot of people dismiss Bitcoin right away. They don't want to do the homework and understand Bitcoin, and so they dismiss it right away as this asset that is too volatile for them. But it can't be analyzed like a regular company. It has to be strategy has to be analyzed very differently from the rest. And Bitcoin's fundamentals are much closer to commodities than anything else. So anyways, moving on to Tesla. So is SpaceX stealing Tesla's thunder? Tesla is not doing well. 410. I'm not happy with that price performance. We were at 480 at the beginning of the year, right? At the turn of the new year, we're at 480, 410. That's not very good in my view. And I think it's clear that people like shiny new things. And a lot of people are perhaps selling some Tesla to move to SpaceX. People are getting very euphoric about SpaceX. And now SpaceX is it's almost twice as expensive as Tesla. SpaceX is almost twice as expensive as Tesla. And so if you are to assume that they would eventually, maybe in 2028, maybe beyond that, if they were to do a 1-for-1 merger or 1-to-1 merger, these two stocks would need to have a very similar market cap. So that would imply actually that Tesla should probably be $700. It seems like the hype of Elon Musk is, and I don't want to use the word hype. I don't think Elon Musk is hype. I think Elon Musk is a very real entrepreneur. But in the common mind of the investor, a lot of people who do not follow it day to day will say it's hype. That's why I'm calling it hype. I'm trying to put myself into the standard basic investor. They would say these valuations are due to hype. I would say SpaceX is much more due to quote unquote hype than Tesla is, because don't forget, there's a lot of good things going on at SpaceX. I think over a very long term, this will be very much a leading company, but there's a lot of execution risk, a whole lot of execution risk. My guess is that the day a Starship blows up, and they inevitably will, you're going to see minus 15% on the stock price, and I think we're going to have opportunities to get into SpaceX. To me, this is day 2 of it trading, and the hype is still alive and well, and the market has forgotten about the good things going on for Tesla. Tesla is literally beginning the S-curve we've been waiting for 3 years, 4 years. Auto sales are bouncing back, by the way. That's a nice cherry on the cake, and auto sales could actually bounce back even more with rates potentially dropping in the United States at some point in 2026. I'm still hopeful of that now that the Middle East situation is over. But Tesla ramping robotaxi, 1,000. Out here. The ramp is happening right now. FSD is finally making some enormous progress, notably European Union approval. I think there's 2 countries now that have approved it in the EU. That's a big deal. The EU is believe it or not, there's more cars in the EU. I mean, it's don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. There's a lot of cars in the EU. It's at least as big as the US as far as the car market goes, and especially electric cars. Right, electric cars very popular in Europe, extremely popular in Europe, and so for Tesla, that's a big deal that FSD is approved in the EU. More people are gonna do subscriptions on FSD. Tesla slowly becoming a subscription business, and of course, energy with the mega pack being at the right place at the right time. Tesla is here at the right place at the right time, providing these energy buffers that are these mega packs for all of these projects. Energy is in extremely high demand. Mega packs long-term growth rate, is it 100% a year? Probably something close to that for at least the next few years. And so I think this is a huge business. I think Tesla's revenue is about to go parabolic. And if the stock price doesn't move and stays in the $400 range, in between, between 380 and 420, if it stays in this level, at some point, this is a coiled spring waiting to explode to the upside. I think SpaceX is getting ahead of itself. I think SpaceX is forgetting that there's execution risk with space. As Musk always says, space is hard. But now moving away from, I guess to the investor who's more average investor, I would say, strategy and Tesla are kind of scary, I would say. These are more edgy type of investments. HIMS, frankly, I don't understand. Anybody who studies HIMS, it's so tough to find anything to say against him is HIMSS, if you really understand the business and how the business works. Other businesses, which I think are harder to deny the success, which I think are more consensus. I'm going to call them consensus businesses. Businesses that appeal to the broadest audiences of investors. These businesses are, I would say, HIMSS. Eventually, HIMSS, in my view, can become a big tech company. Most people don't see it now, but they will. It's NVIDIA and Meta. NVIDIA and Meta. I've called them cheap so many times. Right now, I would honestly be hard pressed to pick which one I find the cheapest. NVIDIA slightly more expensive on EV over GPU over RG at 0.45, but rule of 40 of NVIDIA is much higher at 126. I think NVIDIA is ready for its next leg of the run. It really hasn't done too much the past 6 months. Yeah, we're at 210. We're sitting at 180 for the longest time. If you compare NVIDIA's performance to, say, Micron, which frankly is more easily replaceable in my view than NVIDIA. I think Micron is more easily replaceable than NVIDIA because these models may use different kinds of memories. They may find new compression methods that require less memory. I think there's a lot of things that could jeopardize a lot of these more specialized AI stocks. I do not really see what could jeopardize NVIDIA's position. NVIDIA is the market leader, absolute market leader. And they are very, very cheap at a 0.45, much cheaper than, say, Google, for example. I find Google expensive. I find Microsoft expensive. And for Meta, it's a similar story. I don't understand how Meta fell towards, 580, 570 was it trading last week? I don't understand it. Meta as a forgotten, but a nonetheless true frontier AI lab. It's developing its own model. It's releasing its models with Instagram Plus, with WhatsApp Plus. The models are not just used to create better ads and better targeting of the ads. They're also used for an actual AI model. All of the CapEx, the market is upset at the CapEx that Meta's throwing at AI. But here's the thing, if they don't monetize this CapEx for their own AI model subscriptions, they will capitalize this. They will capitalize this capex. They will use this capex by making their ads even better and making the product even more addictive. And if they don't, maybe they'll rent it to somebody, as we saw SpaceX having no issue renting its AI capacity. So I think Meta is very undervalued at 0.39. It's very rare to see an elite world-class business trade in the 0.3 range on my spreadsheet, and I don't understand why this stock is this cheap. So I think both NVIDIA and Meta have a tremendous amount of room to run. Although of course, within a 2x within 5 years, I think is reasonable for these two. I think whether you look at a Tesla, whether you look at a strategy, and of course whether you look at a HIMSS, you're looking at multi-baggers, right? More than a 10x in 5 years. At least that's what I expect these businesses to do. They are at the edge of innovation, at the edge of what they do, and they are also victims of peak FUD. The low price has driven a really, really bad narrative, but the narrative is going to go away as the prices bounce back. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.